Welcome to Blogs and Articles. In this series, we look at blog posts, articles online, and news stories about love, marriage, dating, and relationships. I'll provide some coaching questions for exploration, as I would for a client who is in this situation. Then finally, I'll provide my commentary at the end of just me being myself, unfiltered and unadulterated. Hi, I'm Janelle, the relationship coach behind The Successful Invisible. I help professional Black women who are 35 plus date and partner with more self awareness and intentionality. Check out the links in the description box below to sign up for my next 5-day self awareness and dating challenge. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I found this article on SciPost and I wanted to bring it to you today because I felt there were a lot of interesting facts and nuances, like the title says, that will be very helpful to anyone Black and in a relationship, romantic relationship, or seeking to be in one. So, this is the nuances of support behaviors in Black romantic relationships. A recent study explored how Black couples support each other in romantic relationships, specifically looking at how well partners respond to each other's needs and how they cope with stress together and how these factors affect their relationship happiness. The study found that supportive behaviors from partners are positively related to relationship satisfaction, and these effects do not significantly differ between interracial and intraracial couples. The findings have been published in the journal Personal Relationships. Black individuals often encounter unique and chronic stressors, including racial discrimination, health disparities, and financial inequality. These stressors not only affect their well being, but can also influence the dynamics of their romantic relationships. Prior research has predominantly focused on white couples, leaving a gap in understanding the specific challenges and strengths of Black romantic relationships. The researchers aim to fill this gap by exploring how partner support, particularly perceived partner responsiveness and dyadic coping, impacts relationship quality for Black individuals in both intraracial and interracial relationships. So, perceived partner responsiveness refers to how attentive and supportive individuals feel their partners are to their needs and concerns. Dyadic coping involves how couples manage stress together, including supportive behaviors, and collaborative problem solving strategies to handle external stressors. I've always been interested in how romantic partners navigate ways that they are similar and dissimilar, and having parents who are in an interracial relationship may be particularly interested in how couples do this when they don't share a racial background, said study author Anika from a PhD candidate at the University of Michigan. What does it look like to support a partner who is, for example, dealing with experiences of discrimination that you yourself have never experienced? The study involved two samples of participants in the United States. The first sample included 114 adults surveyed in early 2021, while the second sample comprised 55 couples surveyed between late 2021 and early 2022. All participants were in romantic relationships where at least one partner identified as Black. Participants ranged in age from 19 to 65 years, with a median age of 28 years. Relationships varied in length from 1 month to 38 years, with 35% of participants being married. So, the participants completed questionnaires about their relationship quality, perceived partner responsiveness, and dyadic coping. Additionally, they responded to an open ended question about the role of race in their relationship. The findings indicated that higher levels of perceived partner responsiveness and supportive dyadic coping were significantly associated with higher relationship satisfaction. Conversely, unsupportive partner responses were linked to lower relationship satisfaction. These associations were consistent across interracial and interracial relationships, suggesting that supportive partner behaviors are universally beneficial for relationship quality, regardless of the racial composition of the relationship. Additionally, the study found no significant differences in relationship quality, perceived partner responsiveness, or dyadic coping based on racial composition of the couple. This suggests that the positive impact of these support processes on relationship quality does not vary significantly between intraracial and interracial relationships. The qualitative data gathered from participants' responses to the open-ended question about the role of race in their relationship provided deeper insights into the nuances of support behaviors. The researchers identified 8 common themes, which were categorized into forms of support and barriers to support. So, forms of support include mutual understanding. Number one, participants in intraracial relationships often highlighted a shared understanding and background with their partner, which facilitated nonverbal communication and alignment in their views of the world. This theme was less common in interracial relationships, though some participants in interracial relationships with a non Black person of color described a sense of solidarity across minority groups. Number two, open conversations. Explicit discussions about race and culture were more frequently mentioned by participants in interracial relationships. These conversations helped partners understand each other's background and cope with racial issues. Number three, willingness to learn. This theme was more prevalent in interracial relationships, where participants describe their partner's openness and effort to understand and support them. Non-Black partners often made conscious efforts to educate themselves and address biases. Number four, defending one's partner. This theme was only seen among partners in interracial relationships, where non-Black partners describe stepping in to defend their Black partner against discrimination. Number five, resilience. Black participants emphasized the strength and determination they and their partners showed in the face of discrimination, often viewing these changes as bonding experiences. Six, joy. Expressions of joy and vibrancy in the relationship were mentioned by Black participants in intra-racial relationships, celebrating positive aspects of their relationship outside the context of discrimination. Barriers to support. Number one, lack of awareness. Participants highlighted instances where one partner lacked understanding or failed to recognize the struggles of their partner, particularly in interracial relationships. This lack of awareness often hindered the ability to provide effective support. Number two, different ways of thinking. Some participants described disagreements with their partner's beliefs or interpretations of events, which could create communication difficulties and inhibit support. Unsurprisingly, we found that people who said their partner supported them and was more responsive also reported higher relationship quality. We also found associations didn't differ between people in same race and interracial couples, though, suggesting this is equally important for these types of couples. But when we look at the qualitative ways people describe support in their relationships, we found a lot more nuance. People talked about things like being able to empathize with one's partner through a shared racial background, being willing to learn about their partner's perspectives, and defending one's partner from racism. We found that some themes, like mutual understanding, were more common for participants in same race relationships, while others, like willingness to learn, were more common in interracial relationships. This study, Partner Support Behaviors and Relationship Quality in Interracial and Intraracial Black Romantic Relationships, was authored by Anika Fromm, Jasmine Banks, and Robin S. Edelstein. And that is the end of the article. All right, now let's jump into some coaching questions that I often ask or would ask in a session with a client who was going through anything similar to the article that I just read. So grab a fresh pen and a notebook and answer these coaching questions truthfully and fully in order to kind of go deeper on your own journey to greater self-awareness when it comes to dating and relationships. And as you know, first relationship, of course, that we need to get healthy around is a relationship with ourselves. So let's jump into these questions for reflection. Question 1. What specific actions and behaviors contribute to perceived partner responsiveness in relationships, and how might these actions differ in intraracial versus interracial relationships? Now, I really want you to break down this question and put yourself in these scenarios based upon what you've read in the article. If you only date within your race, that's fine. But the purpose of answering this question from the perspective of if you also date interracially is to expand your thought processes and your self awareness, because that's the ultimate goal of all of this work that I do. Question two: how do couples in both intraracial and interracial relationships navigate the stress of external factors such as racial discrimination, and what coping strategies are most effective? Once again, if you don't date outside of your race, put yourself in the shoes of if you did and how you would cope with things that are going on, especially in today's, socio-political environment. This is a very relevant question, and think through, because you may find yourself in this spot or in uncomfortable places where you need to have very serious discussions. This can even come if you date within your own race, but maybe you're dating someone who comes from a slightly different class than you, especially if you're dating someone who came from quite a bit of wealth or money. Their experiences, though they're your same race, may not be the same, and there's certain nuances that they won't understand. Question three: considering the findings that support behaviors positively affect relationship satisfaction, what practical steps can partners take to enhance their supportiveness towards each other, especially in the context of understanding racial experiences? Answer this from maybe your own experiences, but also what you plan to do on going forward. Being able to provide that emotional support, those non tangibles, where you're there for your partner and you're showing up. Once again, put yourself in both places. If you're in a same race relationship or interracial relationship, how you would provide support to your partner, especially in the instances where there's racial discrimination or racial components. If you are the partner that's Black, which you likely are because you're listening to this, then put it in the perspective of your non-Black partner experience something racially motivated, because it's not super common, but people who are non-Black do face situations and scenarios that they're put into where race is a component and it makes them uncomfortable because they are now the target. So, how would you support your partner through that? And I think that's a very valuable thing, because anything can happen in this world, and you want to be able to have the mental and emotional tools available to provide support to your partner. And that comes from developing them. And answering this question will help you do that. Question four: in what ways can partners in interracial relationships develop a deeper understanding and empathy towards the unique racial expressions of their Black partner? Answer this from the perspective if you do or don't date interracially. Say you were dating someone that was non Black and you needed them to have a better understanding of you and who you are. I already know there are some books that I would recommend to my partner and have recommended to my partner. Hell, I've even recommended them at work. White Fragility is one, and Hood Feminism is another. And how to be anti-racist, I think, is another. That if I am dating a partner who is non-Black, especially if they're also American, they do have a context of understanding because they're American. But even if they're not, and they're white and from or non-Black or non-person of color from other region of the world, at this stage of my life, that would be very important. Those discussions are paramount and would be centered at the very beginning of the relationship when we're in the talking stages, because that willingness to learn, ding, 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 very important, as mentioned in the article, is going to be foundational to the strength and the success of the relationship. Because guess what? Shit happens when you're in a same race relationship. Shit absolutely happens when you're in an interracial relationship. And if you bring kids into the mix, etc., you want to be able to know and have confidence that your partner is able to understand a situation, support you through a situation, and at the end of the day, they have your back and they're always going to be protective of you and what is you all's if a situation arises. So that's the way I would go about it, but I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on it. Question five: reflecting on the barriers to support identified in the study, such as lack of awareness of different ways of thinking. How can couples address and overcome these challenges to foster a more supportive and understanding relationship environment? Big thing here for me is having open, clear, and respectful communication in a relationship. That starts with all relationships, friendships, family relationships, and definitely romantic relationships. But having that safe space that you know you can come to one another when problems may arise, or you saw something that made you uncomfortable, or they saw something that made them uncomfortable in the world, in the relationship, whatever, in a behavior, that there always needs to be a place to come and talk about it. So having that clear communication, having that safe space, making sure that once again that that's part of the foundational elements that you are building your relationship on is mutual respect and open, clear communication, is going to prevent so many issues from ever occurring, because you're making sure that you are facilitating a healthy environment within your relationship where you all can go and have maybe even uncomfortable conversations. And I see this more to the Black partner talking to their non POC partner about something that arose, something that was said, something that that non person of color, non Black person of color's partner's family may have done. That's a big one that I've heard in my coaching sessions with clients. So having that space where you two can come together and really talk about some hard shit, and consistently having that space respected, honored, and you're always doing it, is important. Now, I'll switch back to something I heard a pastor say one time. I think it was Pastor Jeremy Flowers. You can find him on YouTube. And he was saying when him and his wife first started dating, if I'm recalling this correctly, one of the things that they did was, because they both had some trauma and some stuff in their lives, and I think one of them or both of them had CSA in their background of growing up, and that's a different type of trauma altogether. They had a time, it was called something No Holds Barred Thursdays or something, where they would make it a point to talk about all of the deep, dark, ugly, uncomfortable stuff that had gone on in their lives, and them creating that space has allowed them to continue having that space, safe space to communicate throughout their marriage. And I thought that was a really cool idea. Caveat to this is not, you don't tell your deep dark secrets and discuss stuff like this with every partner, of course. I'm talking about in the context of a romantic partner that you have really sat with, thought about, intuited about, gotten guidance from the ancestors about, prayed about, that this is going to be your spouse. Of course, you have to use your insight and discernment about the level to expose, but the clear, honest, and respectful communication in that safe space, that's a good thing to facilitate in any relationships. We grown over here. We ain't got time for play. And you need to know who's for you and who's not for you. And the only way to really determine that is to have these real conversations that are sometimes very uncomfortable. Let's jump into one of my favorite parts of any of my blogs and article videos. And here I want to offer just my thoughts on what we've just read, how I see it translating in, my coaching and the wonderful people I coach with, and just any broader concepts that come up. Just my thoughts. All right, what I found really interesting about the article was that there are certain characteristics that are more prevalent in, based upon the testing, that are more prevalent in intra-racial relationships, meaning same race relationships, versus interracial relationships. Number one is joy. So in same race relationships, you're more likely to experience joy. This article was specifically about Black relationships. And I believe it's because you have two people, especially if you're from the same part of the diaspora, who understand what joy means. I'm a Black American. I'm a U.S., born and raised. So they're dating a Black man from America. There are going to be some commonalities and things that we never have to explain to each other, and we understand is pure joy. Versus if I was dating a Black man who was from the UK or from Africa or the Caribbean or another part of the world, we may not have the same cultural exposure and understanding of certain things. So we may experience joy together, but it may be a little different and not on as deep of a level. Versus if I dated a man of another race, let's say I dated a white guy in the US or from another part of the world, joy may not never be, not happiness, but joy may never be a part of the equation of our relationship. Another thing I found was interesting on the reverse in interracial relationships, meaning where there's one Black partner and one non-Black identified partner, there's likely to be more of a willingness to learn. And my concept of that is familiarity breeds contempt. The old, as the saying goes. So when you're familiar with someone, so if you're dealing with two people of the same exact race, you're less willing to lean in and learn more specifics about that individual person per se. This is based upon the study, not individuals, because you think you already know them, because you come from the same background as they do. And versus when you come from a different background as your partner, especially when you're talking about a Black person and a non person of color overall, I think there's more of a willingness to learn. Now, when you have a Black person partner with a person that's just a person of color from another ethnic and racial background, you also are going to have that willingness to learn, but there's also going to be some commonalities that don't need to be explained because you face some of the same racial stressors in the broader world and society. So this was a very enlightening study, but the biggest thing was the same main factors, overarching factors, do contribute to relationship satisfaction. You feeling supported by your partner, whether in your same race or interracial relationship, is important. That's very important. When somebody doesn't feel heard, when somebody doesn't feel seen, and somebody doesn't feel supported and they feel dismissed, which is oftentimes a root cause. And what I've seen in clients I've worked with my coaching for dissatisfaction in the relationship, it makes sense that relationship satisfaction is going to be low. So definitely recommend this, read through this. And if you are in a relationship, especially in a interracial relationship, I think this would be very insightful around some of the components that are needed or that have been identified through this study. It wasn't super huge, but I think it's valuable. Study of support as well as barriers, and you'll get a lot out of it. I can say in my experience personally, in my life, I have dated interracially multiple times, but I'm very good at screening people. So I look for the same characteristics in a person, regardless of the skin they're in. So alignment and compatibility are two driving factors that lead the way that I date, that I partner, that I entertain someone. And if I'm not seeing alignment and compatibility, and that means in personality traits and goals, etc., but that also means in level of empathy, level of emotional intelligence, level and willingness to defend those you care about. That is very important to me. So I'm personally am very thankful. I've never had a negative dating experience, no matter the race of the man, in those particular aspects around race. And that comes from vetting very heavily and looking for certain characteristics in any person I'm entertaining. And I highly suggest every woman out there do the same thing. Men should do it too, but I make my content for women. Fabulous professional women who are 35 plus and single and looking to date better. So read this article. I'll drop the link below. Let me know your experiences in the comments because I'm curious to see, what have you experienced in the past? How have you grown? And where do you plan on going next in the future of dating, or in your personal future of dating, and how you're approaching it? Thank you for joining me today for this episode of Blogs and Articles. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Check out the links in the description box below to sign up for my next 5-day self-awareness and dating challenge. Also, check out my podcast, The Successful Invisible, next season publishing soon on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Until next time, this is your coach, Janelle. Stay empowered and see you on the next article or blog post.